is Ebony Davis for DVULI's On the Level, and this episode is all about collaboration. We're talking to Jeremy Del Rio here of Thrive Collective, and he's going to talk to us about going from silos to synergies. So welcome, Jeremy. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Ebony. It's great to be here with you.
Can you tell me just a little bit, Jeremy, about Thrive Collective and how it got started?
Sure. So Thrive Collective is a nonprofit based in New York City that creates hope and opportunity through arts, sports, and mentoring in and around public schools. It is an outgrowth of a lifetime of community youth development. I'm a preacher's kid, and so I grew up in a low-income part of the city, working alongside of my parents, first in an outreach ministry and then in a church plant that they started before we knew that's what it was called. And in the process of doing that work, I got drafted to start the youth ministry when I was underqualified and way too young, but grew into a real passion for seeing our youth ministry meet kids where they were in very tangible, concrete ways, right? And one of those ways was in education. Specifically, my younger brother challenged me one day. He said, "I'm tired that when kids finish our youth programs, they can't get good jobs."
Wow.
And his insight was that they struggled to find good jobs because many of them were bad at math. He said, if the gospel is really good news for the poor, then at a minimum, a young person should be able to get a decent job when they graduate out of our youth group. And his feeling was if we cross the street and move from our youth center into the school, the public school that fed kids into our programs, he could teach math and fewer of them would think they hated it and more of them would get good at it. And that's ultimately the catalyst that led to Thrive Collective.
And so Thrive is in what year now?
So we evolved into Thrive Collective in 2013-2014 school year. So we just finished our first full decade as an arts education nonprofit. This current iteration has evolved from about 30 plus years of youth ministry that I've been involved with in different capacities. But as an arts education and school-based nonprofit, just over 10 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you guys, I saw you all just had a really cool honor on the Today Show that Hoda Kotb was celebrating her 60th birthday. And part of the way that she celebrated was with what?
So the producers of the Today Show called us about a month ago. They had been referred to us by the New York City Department of Ed, by the Arts Office. They wanted to commission a mural that would be painted with students and artists that interpreted one of Hoda's favorite phrases, which is right on time. And so they reached out, it worked out, and it was presented as a surprise to Hoda yesterday live on her 60th birthday celebration. Big unveiling, and for us, it was really an honor. Not just because it was the Today Show and that significance, but it was actually our 600th mural done with students over the last decade. And so the honor for her was right on time for us too, as a very unique way to celebrate the hard work of our kids over the last 10 years.
Amen. And so this episode is all about collaboration. And you started out with Thrive, and at some point you kind of started to add other cities. Can you tell us about that journey?
Sure. So from the beginning of Thrive's evolution, because I had been so invested in youth ministry for so many years, I had a lot of organic social networks of like-minded youth workers in different cities through UIWI, Urban Youth Workers Institute, through obviously the DeVos Urban Leadership Initiative, and a number of other youth ministry organizations. My peers in other cities became aware of different ways that we were working in public schools. And so for years, we would have a lot of shared learning, right? We'd find people who were of like mind and like heart in different places, and encourage one another with stories and best practices and ideas and resources. And collectively, we grew tremendously. Um, and as our New York expression of that movement continued to evolve, specifically in the arts and mentoring space, more of my colleagues from other places asked us how we did it and what did it look like. And it felt so fragile for us in New York, that we would just open source it, right? Our philosophy was, freely we've received, freely we're going to give it away. And so we would tell people, hey, check out what's happening on our website. Here's what we've learned, and here's what it looks like. And that was amazing. And, I think it deepened relationships. But in the last couple of years since COVID, we've had an opportunity to go deeper,
Mm,
and really think systematically
mm.
about the work that we've done, and extrapolate from that, what works and what doesn't work. And we're now able to share that in a much more proactive and structured way. And so 3 years ago, we launched something called School Partners NYC. I'm sorry, School Partners USA, which evolved from the New York City expression, where we've begun to deepen our relationships, starting in 3 other cities in Dallas, San Diego, and Oakland. We identified colleague youth ministers in those cities, all of whom are DVULI alums that were similarly engaged with public schools. And then we built a cohort-based training experience for their peers in their cities to learn how to build partnerships with local public schools. And so we've had the pleasure of modeling much of what we've done on the DVULI experience and the way that DeVos has framed a cohort learning model, the things that we learned from DeVos, that DeVos encourages us to adapt and tailor to our own context. We've tried to do that and take DeVos at their word, and it's been an amazing gift to see youth workers from those cities who desire a relationship with the school. Maybe they're already dabbling or engaging on a basic level, but they want to go deeper, or maybe they have yet to engage,
Yeah.
that local school, but they know that it's part of what God is calling them to do. We come alongside of them with tools and training and coaching, so that they're able to cultivate that relationship in meaningful ways.
That's amazing. And kind of on that, does each participant have like a school system context that they're putting into practice, a different school system context that they're putting into practice?
Yeah, great question. So locally in every city, right, the city coordinators are already practitioners in some specific way in their cities, right? They may or may not be similar to Thrive in terms of an arts orientation or a mentoring focus or whatever,
Mm,
but they are local youth ministry practitioners who are, engaging public schools for the benefit of public schools,
mm,
right? They're committed to improvements in educational outcomes, everything from attendance to math and reading scores and all of that kind of thing. So, on that level, yes, they're engaged. The cohorts that we're recruiting are youth workers in those cities who may or may not be engaging in public schools yet, but they understand their calling to require them to be present and active in a public school
that's good.
in some way. And so what we are doing is sharing from our own experience how you manifest that vision, right? How to lean into that. The Dallas public education system is structured very, very differently than New York's. And San Diego is different than Oakland, and they're all different from New York. So
Mm,
there's a lot of customization and application that has to happen locally on the ground. But there's enough similarity that we're able to share and grow together in very meaningful ways.
So when you think about that, what would be sort of elements of success that you can take sort of across collaboration, a success for collaboration across contexts? You know, like
Yeah.
these are the things that the things about collaboration that really seem to work across the board.
Oh, there's so many of those, right? I would start by saying recognize that when you're engaging in a collaboration context,
Mm,
maintain the posture of a servant,
mm,
right? Jesus didn't come to save, he came to serve. And the way that he engaged the people of Israel, the way he engaged every individual that he connected with was first to serve and to listen and to be responsive to their felt needs. I think that's a universal truth, right? Nobody wants to be rescued. And so when we come in with that savior mentality, then we are preventing a collaboration from really being a
mm.
collaboration.
Come on.
And so that's one. Another thing is as you're engaging, discover what unites you, right? We exist in a world where it's so easy to identify what differentiates us,
Right.
values and dreams and goals and philosophies and all of that. And those divisions um, keep us apart. A collaboration by definition means that we're connecting on
Mhm.
something we share in common, right? And so to find whatever that is that you share in common requires effort, and it requires a lot of listening, a lot less talking, and a lot less prescribing, and more of a shared discovery process. And so to maintain that kind of a posture, I think, would be the next. When you figure that out, right, whatever that shared vision and those shared values are, don't, maintain that humility by under promising and over delivering,
Yeah, I
right?
love it.
So
Come
you
on.
you're because you're not there to save, and as you build that relationship, you're going to identify 100 different
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
You can't save 100 things at once. And so finding, the that nugget, that kernel of a small action that's going to have an outsized impact, right? And so find that and do that really well.
Mm,
Exceed their expectations on that one thing. As you do that, you're building a resume of trust.
mm,
You're giving them a reason to trust you, to invite you back, a reason to be excited when you call or when you show up unannounced at their office.
mm.
And that kind of goodwill leads to a deeper relationship and greater impact, right? So those would be some of the truths that are universal.
Okay, so
Yeah.
these are the things that are gonna kind of help carry us across collaboration, no matter what circumstance we're in. Tell me more about the hurdles that you faced.
So if I could be really blunt, the biggest hurdle that we have encountered in New York, I'm not going to
Mhm.
project this on any other city, but in New York is finding churches that are willing to meet schools on schools' terms.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the issue is not that the schools want to keep the doors closed.
Mm,
The issue that more and more principals and educators and custodians and DOE administrators, they recognize that there is a value to community partnerships,
mhm,
and there are plenty of opportunities for outside groups to add value to the students and to the culture of the school building. What they resist is when community partners, not just faith-based groups, but really any outside groups come in, from the posture of this is a dysfunctional system filled with dysfunctional leaders, and we know how to fix it,
mhm,
right? Like
mhm.
that's a very alienating posture. And so, and then the other thing that they resist is when the outside groups come in using the rhetoric of partnership, but it feels like bait and switch.
Wow.
Like there's something on the back end some sort of ulterior motive, that's really driving the relationship. When that manifests, it becomes an impediment not just to that group, but every other group that claims something in common with that group,
Oh,
that might come in
yeah.
afterwards. So
Yeah.
when a faith-based group, comes in saying that they want to assist with the tutoring program, and then the tutoring program that they're assisting with, they start, kind of insisting on inviting kids during tutoring to the Sunday school program that's happening at the church. Right now, it feels like the tutoring was a pretense for the recruitment, and then the recruitment leaves a bad taste
Mm,
in the mouths of the people who said yes because you said you were going to help to tutor,
mm,
right? Conversely, when they say they need tutors and your church provides tutors and all of your church members are the best tutors in the school, right? They're going to probably call you the next time they need volunteers for something other than tutors
mm.
because everybody you brought to tutor crushed it.
Yeah.
And so when there's a crisis, they're going to call you to come and help with the crisis. Or when there's another opportunity, they're going to call you to see if you can support them in that opportunity. And even better, when you call with an idea, they're going to take it seriously because you've proven that you're trustworthy. That's what we mean by a resume of trust, right? So
I
I
love
think that's
yeah.
probably the
Good.
biggest resistance, and there's more if you want to talk about
Yeah.
other
No, that
hurdles.
I think that's something that we need to hear, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us complain about not being able to get into this to the schools, but what has been sort of the legacy that's been left before us? Is there a reason that they might be reluctant? Are we coming in with the right humility? So wow, check
Yeah.
ourselves. All right, family, check ourselves. All right. Well, that sort of leads us to sort of the issue of resource networking. You think about School Partners USA. Um, tell us about that, or did you learn something new, I guess, through School Partners USA about resource networking?
The short answer is absolutely.
Mhm.
The more nuanced expression of that is right. Our resource network, first, who's the network? It's everybody that you know, right? And everybody that they know. When you're part of a community like DeVos, you're at an advantage because everybody within DeVos is part of your network.
Yeah.
And even if you graduated years ago and maybe you weren't networking in some sort of formal way, at the end of the day, you have a shared experience that brings a common language, a common set of values and shared experiences that become the basis for a relationship, and so that's kind of the first thing to resource networking is figuring out who do you know, who do they know, right? And cultivating the relationship with that person, with
Mm,
that individual. A lot of people that we come across, their interests lie elsewhere. Don't take it personally, right? Celebrate the fact that they know what God is calling them to do,
yeah.
and keep on finding your tribe, the people that share that. With School Partners, as we've grown, it started again because I met people in other cities and through the DeVos family that shared an interest in working meaningfully in public schools, and because we had that in common, we developed friendships. And a lot of the early stages of the relationships were just like commiserating together and granting comfort because it could be hard at times, but you build those connections, and then once comforted,
Mm,
you're able to dream again
yeah.
and ask the what if questions. And then the other part of resource networking is the resourcing, so being able to clearly define what it is that you feel compelled to do, and then breaking that down into its component parts and then saying, where do I get that stuff? You
Mm,
know,
mm,
and in the getting that stuff, you find that within that network, you're probably a lot closer to the stuff than you thought you were, and you make those calls and one thing leads to another, and you're able to pull the pieces together a lot faster.
I love thinking about that kind of the idea of breaking it down because we do tend to think, oh my goodness, I need all of this
Yeah.
without breaking it down into the specific elements.
Mhm.
Um, when you or as you have worked with different fundings, did you find city funds particularly difficult or any difficulty dealing specifically with city funds?
So city funds are a double-edged sword,
Okay.
right? And we live on both edges of that sword all the time. Um, the plus side is our municipalities, government entities, city, state, feds, right? They're committed to investing in a lot of the social impact that our ministries do every day.
Mm-mm.
They might not know about your ministry,
Right.
or they've never heard how your ministry is having social impact. But the larger social impact goals of the ministry, they're committed to funding.
Mm,
So that's the upside, right? They're there, the money's already there, and they're looking for good partners. And by good, I mean partners that are effective, efficient, they
mm,
have integrity, right? And so that's all the plus side. When you establish those relationships and become part of that resourcing, the other side is the cities and government entities notoriously pay late. A lot of those contracts are reimbursable, so you have to figure out how to pay the expense up front, and then they'll reimburse you afterwards. So they are not a magic bullet,
mm,
sometimes, especially if you access them prematurely, they can become very
mm.
suffocating.
Okay.
So if you don't have government contracts yet, then it's just not the right time.
Mm.
And take that as a gift, because if you get them prematurely, they could put you out of
Yeah.
business
Okay.
um, with the
Okay.
cash flow problems.
Okay.
Um,
So you
so
want to
that,
make sure you got some other funding going on
yeah,
before you
exactly.
get it.
And the language of that, is diversify your funding
Mm,
sources, find the people that are willing to champion your cause first,
yeah.
that will invest in that cause. And then from there, who are the local institutions? Maybe they're churches or businesses or, civic associations
Mm-hmm.
that align with that cause. Even learning how to translate your work in ministry as a social impact
Hmm.
movement or
Learning curve.
entity. Yeah. Commit to that learning curve, and recognize again the layers or the elements, the components of the work that you're doing.
All right. Well, I just want to end. I know you have a background as a lawyer, and so I just want to ask: is there anything else that I don't know to ask that you think it's important to share when we talk about collaboration and partnership?
I would say maintain a sense of wonder.
Mm,
I think youth workers, really anybody who's in leadership, we like to be in control. And I think the best leaders surrender control.
uh,
Like they recognize that there's far more that we don't control. And so how do we maintain what we do have? Like we're stewards over what we do have responsibility for, but then align that with all the other things that are out there that we have resonance with, and when we do that, then the world becomes filled with all kinds of adventures,
mm,
and things that you couldn't script. Like I couldn't, there is no way 25-year-old Jeremy would have scripted that at this stage in my life I would be known for producing murals, right? That's probably the last thing I would have projected at that stage in my life, but it's been a wonderful adventure, and there's a lot of beautiful results that have added value in ways that I don't even fully appreciate. And that's because of the commitment to wonder, curiosity, and always asking, and always being open to the unexpected.
All right. Well, Jeremy Del Rio, thank you so, so much. I'm inspired. I'm encouraged to dig a little bit more into those resources. But most of all, it's just amazing to see what God has done through Thrive Collective and through School Partners USA. So thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you. One last thing. If anybody's watching this from Dallas, New York City, San Diego, or Oakland, the Accelerate Leadership Summit by School Partners is coming to each of those cities this fall.
Okay.
And you can visit schoolpartners.us to find out all the details, but we'd love to see you in your city.
All right, family. You heard it from him. Pull up. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you.